So, first up, from Hex News Channel, PulseChain Aragon client status as of today. So he's talking about the, again, I'll pull up Aragon Ethereum. And there are two, let's see, so this is the execution client, I believe. Yeah, execution client. So there's Geth and Aragon. And those are execution clients. Hopefully I didn't mess that up. And I'll go back to Richard Hart's Twitter and his tweet for reference. And then there's the consensus clients, which are Lighthouse and what's the other one? Prysm. So those are consensus clients and execution clients and those are clients that you can use when running a node in Ethereum 2.0. So this is the client status for Aragon client. And he just talks about how dev stuff hard. The bodies are all downloaded. Now on to indexing and Merkle tree building stages. Okay, as you know, Merkle tree is a structure and how to organize data in a blockchain, and indexing it, is pretty common task in doing all that. The bodies are all downloaded. Let me just Google for bodies index Merkle. See if get some context around that. So a large body of data. So maybe that's what he's talking about there. Some of this is just kind of common parsing, common lingo. A large body of data. So maybe that's what he's talking about. Bodies of data there. And then let's see. So basically indexing stuff with the client on the node, it sounds like. The rest of the stages are mostly CPU intensive and is what makes Aragon the choice for block explorers and other utilities that use them. So he's saying that Aragon is a good choice to use as a client because these are CPU intensive. Apparently he thinks it does a good job at that. That's probably one of the reasons why it was picked. At the end of these stages, total disk usage will be ballpark 2 terabytes. Okay. And that's something that Alex from Hedron tweeted the other day, which was, I believe he mentioned it was good news that around 2 terabytes, because it sounds like he may be building these plug and play miners or nodes, plug and play nodes, plug and play validators, etc. And that kind of disk space could maybe fit on SSD. I forget the conversation around it, but that was good news that we're going this direction, because it could making these devices that could come into play later on, they could further decentralize PulseChain and maybe earn you some fees if you want to be a validator. And people are building stuff like that, like Alex seems to be investigating. These are all good stuff for the community who's building around it. So, and again, this is the first time I'm reading this. I haven't did any research on it. This is just me. I just briefly skimmed it and said, okay, I think I can talk about this. So forgive me if I misnomer or need to look something up, because this is the first time I'm looking at it. I just want to get to it as quick as I could. I believe we can get through it coherently, though. I'll talk to the chat in just a minute. Appreciate funny, Jim. What's up, man? Welcome. Yeah, I do have ChatGPT over here, so I could ask it to parse this, although it's a picture, so I don't know, ChatGPT may be parsing pictures soon too. So stage 9 is the compute stage. We'll build and verify the Merkle tree. Interesting. Stage 9. Let's just type this in. This is also how you do research. How I do research, at least. I thought about doing a stream on how to do research. Let me know if you think that would be helpful, because I did a lot of research, so I know some tricks around that. Let's see, stage 4, another transaction, or stage 9. So stage 9 seems to be, let's see. Interesting. Trying to get some context of what. It's definitely some blockchain nomenclature here. Okay, yeah, again, I feel like it's just reading these dev updates here. Stage 9 is a compute state stage, which will build and verify the Merkle tree. Okay. I mean, it's not super important, I guess, to understand that fully, but it's just a detail. I love how these devs, they need like a parentheses or something of like a reference point of, hey, parentheses, stage 9 equals blah. And that would make this a lot easier too. I don't even know if Richard knows what stage 9 is, honestly, but he doesn't need to. It only takes this long to sync when building from block 0. Okay, after building, Aragon will use BitTorrent to download the state from existing nodes. Okay, that just means that, yeah, you'll use BitTorrent to download the state. That's a decentralized way of downloading stuff from other clients that may be closer, could make things faster. This part's not super important. Very, very dev speak. So without a lot of context, it's hard to come up on that one. You could read up on the stages that Aragon uses to build the blockchains and indexes. Okay, well, here's a link if you want to understand why it's widely used by third-party tools. So stages 5. Oh, okay, that's okay. Interesting. So let's go to Ledger Watch. Let's go to that real quick. I wonder if it just Ledger Watch. And here we go. That's probably it, I imagine. Aragon Devil stage sync readme. Yeah, there we go. So we're gonna figure out what stage 9 is. Compute state root stage. The stage builds a Merkle tree, misspelled, and checks the root hash for current state. Also builds intermediate hashes along the way and starts in the database. If there was no intermediate hashes stored before, it builds the full Merkle tree. And it's okay. Maybe that's just a way to spell tree, apparently. If there are intermediate hashes in the database, use the block history to figure out. Okay, so it computes the state root stage. Yeah, just doing blockchain Merkle tree stuff, database stuff. It's not super important to even know how that works, honestly. Cool. Dev stuff, as you mentioned. So a deployment module for Terraform was built yesterday, which controls how many of each node are deployed at a time, short circuits if a deployment fails, or node health checks are failing. So Terraform, that's some cloud stuff. Terraform, open source infrastructure as code software tool that enables you to safely, predictably create, change, and improve infrastructure. So essentially, you can define your infrastructure. You can say, I need 5 VMs. I need this kind of storage. I need all these things in a configuration file. And then you can just deploy it instead of on the cloud when you spin up stuff, instead of manually doing it one at a time. And you need to do that for each deployment. You can use Terraform to spin up the exact same number of nodes, number of storage devices, the same specifications, or change it, and then all your other deployments come up the same. That's what Terraform is used for. So when he talks about the deployment module for Terraform was built yesterday, exactly controls how many of each node deployed at a time, what happens if something fails, and or if the node health checks are failing. So it sounds like they have some testing infrastructure to make sure Terraform, when they do a deployment, everything is launching correctly, and they have health checks around that. Cool. That's what devs do. Do stuff like that. Make sure failures aren't critical and they catch them early, and great for testing. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'm just going to get through the message, and then I'm going to go to chat and go back to any of the questions you have on each part. It's just good for me to read it all so I can have some sort of context around when I start looking at questions. This is useful as changes to configuration that during deployment calls consensus nodes not to start up. After rolling back the changes, the chain would not start again without a custom built prysm. Okay. Yeah, so they just want to make sure that Terraform is working well. They have some sort of watching over the errors or failures that may happen. And chain would not start back up with a custom bit of Prism. So again, Prism, I talked about the other day when I talked about these updates, is a consensus client in ETH 2.0. I went over this in the beginning just a little bit. And also what Richard talked about here, Prism Pulse. So we just forked Prism from the Ethereum. It's a consensus client. And he's saying here that they need to make sure the configuration during deployment that may have caused any failures to occur that they know about, and they don't need to do a bunch of other stuff. Without a custom build of Prism, they don't need to make other code changes to make sure stuff works, because they're going to get Terraform right. Essentially, what he's saying. Bug we found, work with Prism developers back. He said, cool. And this is apparently because they've PulseChain developers found a bug in Prism that they worked to get fixed back in December. So devs have been working, might have been worked through Christmas. I don't know. And they're making open source contributions, which is great. We now have protection from this happening, which results in safer and faster deployments. Cool. It seems like I'm about to get to the end. I'll just go through it and I'll give my summary of this. Faster deployments, because prior we used static sleep to control the rollout. Now we have distributed lock, and when it's released, the next node begins. Cool. So sleep versus lock. So it sounds like they were just sleeping for a while, which is, it's not the most efficient thing, because sleep is just, you make the program go to sleep because you're trying to guess when another operation is going to be complete. So you sleep maybe 30 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, however long you've tested that it takes for the operation to complete. But for this, we have a distributed lock, and when it's released, so lock generally means you can take hold of a resource and make sure it's not used until you unlock it. So there's no, and there's mutexes and all these terms, I'm trying to explain it simply. So shared resources don't conflict with each other. It's just a quick way to put it. So essentially, it's just a more efficient way of sleeping, because now they can, maybe when they're deploying it, when something is finished, it can tell the other thing, oh, I'm finished, you can start now, instead of wasting 30 seconds sleeping because they had no information. So it's just a nicer way of getting notifications based on certain activities around the system of deployment. So which results apparently in faster deployments. So they're able to speed up deployment time. Good luck understanding all that. TLR's development's going great. So if I were to summarize real quick, the devs are working on the Aragon execution client and the Prism consensus client, both of which are necessary for PulseChain. Now that we've forked ETH 2.0, you need execution and consensus client, and they're doing deployments for testnet, mainnet. I mean, these things can be reused to launch. So they're working on the clients, the PulseChain clients, making progress on the PulseChain clients, and they're making progress on deployment modules, which sounds like things that are needed to be done in order to get to the next stage. So yeah, faster deployments and work on the clients. It doesn't sound super exciting, but these are critical pieces that need to happen before they can go to the next step, and that's why they're working on it. So makes sense to me. So I'll go to, yeah, it's just dev stuff. So I feel like you would just read this in a meeting. If you worked somewhere and the developers are telling you about stuff, you would read this as, say, this is like a status update for what we've been working on, and it's making progress towards the goal. Yeah, it's all the rumors. It makes sense. We've heard a lot of rumors that testnet v3 is coming out soon, and this sounds like progress.